All right, let's get Frank Klose in here now to talk some Phillies. Frank, how you doing, man?
I'm great. How are you guys?
Doing good. What, are you on the road? You're running all over the place today, Josh told me.
Yeah, that's my day today, but it's all good.
All right, good. So Phillies had a tough loss last night, Frank. 5-3, dropping the first game here in a big series against the Nationals. You know, what are your thoughts on last night?
You know, I think it's a shame because the Phillies keep losing the first game of every series. You know, it's almost like they have a bad first game, bad second game, and sort of the redeeming final game. But at the end of the day, they're still losing every series, it seems. So they really got to get ahead. They really need to. I think the really unfortunate thing is the Phillies did not add a starting pitcher. You know, they kind of were expecting Zach Eflin, Nick Pivetta, Vince Velasquez to be what they were in the first half, and that expectation is perhaps not so realistic. And you know, they're young guys; they're going to hit a wall. They haven't pitched this many innings before, and I think that's a real concern going forward. Now, the good news is they'll get Jared Eichhoff back, but it would have been really nice to add an established starting pitcher that would, you know, a game like yesterday doesn't necessarily get away if you have an experienced starting pitcher.
Frank, does this look like a team that's running out of gas? The loss last night was the team's 7th in the last 9 games and 13 out of the last 20. Are they just gassed at this point, or can they still turn it around?
I think that's a fair assessment. They lost another half game to the Braves last night. They're 3.5 out now. When they were 3 out, I thought they were still in it, and funny, I was tweeting up a storm on Sunday night, and Mike Gill actually wrote a piece with all my tweets, kind of keeping me from writing the same thing. But yeah, I think they're still in it. I mean, the Braves are equally gassed. The Braves aren't scoring runs either. At some point, something's got to give for somebody. Now, the Phillies have added a bunch of veterans that should try to turn those fortunes around in terms of the offense. But right now, the worry is the pitching staff. And the ones on this roster at this moment, I think, indeed, are gassed, to say the least.
Yeah, so, Frank, speaking of the pitching staff, Eflin did not pitch well at all. He gave up 8 hits, 5 runs, 2 unearned, over 5 1/3 innings. He walked 2, gave up a solo home run to Matt Wieters in the second inning. What's your thought on Eflin's performance and how he's going to fare moving forward as we're down the stretch?
I think the key to Eflin, the reason he was having so much success is that he had a couple extra miles on his fastball this year. And I want to look carefully at. I didn't get the opportunity to really look through all his pitches and really see where his velocity was on average throughout the course of the night. But if he's losing a tick or two, that could make a big difference for somebody like Eflin in terms of his movement. I really hope to see him really kind of do what he was doing in the first part of the season, and a lot of it had to do with the velocity. Hopefully he's not losing that because he's getting tired, because this is the most innings he's thrown in a season.
Frank, it's Scott Grayson. Ryan mentioned, maybe this team running out of gas. How much of it might be the fact, too, that they're just pressing? I mean, they're not holding leads. Are they just trying to beg for a win as opposed to go and take it?
Yeah, I think that's a good way of looking at it. I mean, let's face it, a lot of these guys don't have a lot of experience being in this situation before. So that's why they acquired the veterans they did, to try to change some flavor here. I wish they had another one of those veterans in the starting rotation. But I do think that yeah, a lot of it's just their inexperience, and maybe they're starting to feel like they're close and they're panicking a little bit. I don't know. But that would explain some of the inconsistency from some of the young guys, perhaps.
They did actually put through the trade here with Jose Bautista, so he's coming. What does that do, if anything, to this team that maybe needs a shot in the arm of some kind? And I know he hasn't exactly been lighting the world on fire like he was earlier in his career, but does he help?
Yeah, I think so. I think the other night it was kind of telling when they needed a right-handed pinch hitter and they went to Andrew Knapp. They really don't have that type of veteran bat. Now they've added the likes of Asdrubal Cabrera and Wilson Ramos, which kind of pushed a catcher to the bench, which really you can't be a pinch hitter. And they added Cabrera, meaning that probably most of the time it'll be Scott Kingery on the bench, but Kingery is not an experienced right-handed pinch hitter. So that's something where they could probably use the help. And I think they're going to see if Bautista has got a little bit left in the tank to see if he can kind of push them forward a little bit through to the postseason, being that experienced bat as opposed to an unexperienced bat.
Frank, just going off of Scott's question, I'm going to dive into the mailbag now. Maureen wants to know, why would the Phillies even want Jose Bautista? He's not even hitting 200 this year.
Yeah, I know. I think the problem is, if you're looking to add a veteran bat, there's not that many out there. I think the key thing right now is that Justin Bour is hurt. And I really think before the end of the week they have to decide, is Bour really going to come back or is he not? And if he's not going to make it back this year, I would try to put him on the 60-day disabled list and find another lefty bat. You really need those veteran types that can pinch hit at this point because, again, with so many rookies around and young players, I'm going to put it this way, too. Andrew Knapp, as the backup catcher, he spent so much time showing up in the ninth inning and getting a pinch hit off the closer. And I don't think that's the fairest thing to do to Knapp, even though he does have some talent as a hitter. And I think that adding the likes of Bautista, I mean, what other right-handed veteran bats are actually out there to acquire at this point? And I don't think there are many. And I think that somebody like him, he's somebody they've liked for a long time. And who knows, maybe being in a pennant race this stretch run will help excite him a little bit, and maybe we'll see him come up with some big hits. But in terms of what's out there, it sounds like the Phillies were making lots of claims to see what they could do, and this one actually fell through to the Phillies.
Frank asks, what will the Phillies do when Jared Eichhoff returns? Will he replace a starter?
Well, the Phillies have said that Eichhoff, part of it I think is timing too. Now, he lined up with Nick Pivetta for a rotation spot, but Nick Pivetta is scheduled to pitch August 31st, and Eichhoff, like a lot of players, might not be activated until September 1st when rosters expand. But it would have been too complicated to send somebody down to bring up Eichhoff to take Pivetta's next start. I would not be totally shocked if eventually he's getting some starts on behalf of either Pivetta or Eflin if they need a breather. But what they've said officially is that he's going to start out as a reliever, and the idea is Eichhoff can pitch multiple innings behind one of those guys if necessary. But I would not be shocked if he's not making some starts because, the Phillies, if they're really going to win, they got to stop. They've got to stop having starts like you saw yesterday, that you saw with Pivetta's last start. They need some guys to go deep, or at the very least somebody to piggyback them. And the nice thing about rosters expanding soon is that they don't have to be patient with these young starters. If they sense trouble with Pivetta or Eflin or even Velasquez, who might have been the most consistent of the three of them, they can go to the bullpen and not worry because they're going to have plenty of arms. And Eichhoff is going to help make that happen for now, at least as a reliever at first. But he's probably going to get a start somewhere because, the Phillies have a lot of games in a row. And you want Nola pitching every fifth day right now. And certainly your veteran Arrieta. But beyond that, those guys you might do some shuffling too, just because of their high pitch counts, high inning counts, and because of their inconsistency.
Bob wants to know, who will the Phillies call up on September 1st?
Now, the Phillies have said they're going to do this kind of in two ways. Now, the Iron Pigs actually won their division, and they're going to be in the playoffs. And I think for some of the players, for their psyche, for their development, they kind of want to see them play out through the playoffs. I think that means two names that have pitched for the Phillies this year, Ranger Suarez and Yadiel De Los Santos. They might stick in AAA until their season's done. You might see them after that to make probably relief appearances here and there. The likes of Pedro Florimon, who is recovering and doing a rehab assignment right now, I think he'll be up September 1st as soon as you can. And it'd be an interesting call, too. I think Aaron Altair and J.P. Crawford will be up sooner than later. They might want to ride them through the playoffs. I don't know. I mean, Crawford's kind of finding his groove. And Altair, Altair hasn't really made a statement that he needs to be called up, but we'll see. I would expect Aaron Altair to be back sooner than later because they might need him for the defense in the outfield as a defensive replacement, as guys might pinch hit more freely. Because let's face it, if you're going to start taking pitchers out after the third and fourth and fifth inning or whatever, because you have the pitching depth. You're going to need more pinch hitters. So I would expect them to come. I kind of thought Mark Leiter Jr. would have come around, but he was actually designated for assignment today to make room for Jose Bautista. And I think that Leiter, he might be somebody they hope can get through waivers and stay in the system. And, Leiter was very promising and ended up after he got injured, he just wasn't the same. In spring training, he looked amazing. And I think the Phillies are hoping that with lots of teams adding players to their 40-man roster, they can slip him through. But then the second wave, whoever's still around, Dylan Cousins, you'll probably see later. If he's still on the 40-man roster, maybe Mitch Walding, but his roster spot could be in jeopardy to make room for Florimon. And the likes of that will come later, the ones that made appearances in Philly. But certainly the relievers like Yaxel Rios will probably come right away. Edubray Ramos, when he's healthy, will come right away. And really those types of guys that can help you in the bullpen and make it easier for you to go to the bullpen quicker.
Frank, real quick before we let you go, what are your thoughts on tonight? Nola versus Scherzer.
Well, if you saw the last one, this is going to be a good one.
Yeah,
it'd be really hard for them to follow up that last matchup. But I fully expect, especially pitching at home, Nola to be on and be money like he's been. And right now, I think more than ever, you have the narrative that the two of them are kind of competing with Jacob deGrom for the Cy Young Award. And by the way, another pitching matchup to keep an eye on this week: deGrom versus Cole Hamels, who's been very well for the Cubs. So lots of good baseball this week, and I think tonight's going to be about, all right, who's the guy that's going to deserve this Cy Young Award. I think that's what everybody's going to be looking for when they're watching. And I would expect we see what we saw on Thursday, a really close game, not a lot of offense, and hopefully the Phillies, who finally, for the first time ever as a Washington National, beat Max Scherzer, can at least eke out a couple runs as they did the other day and see what they can do to make that happen. Because this is not going to be an easy game. You really want to win Game 1 against Strasburg, who's just coming back off an injury, because today is going to be a tough one, but it should be good baseball.
It certainly will, man. It's going to be a must-watch tonight. Nola versus Scherzer. Phillies try to bounce back after a tough opening game against the Nationals at Citizens Bank Park last night. Frank Klose with the Phillies Mailbag every Tuesday at 3:30. Thanks, man. Drive safe.
Thanks, guys.